This video is sponsored by Private Internet Access. $2 billion in assets, Rolexes, and Rolls-Royce. A Chinese scam and money laundering network caught in Singapore. Cash, watches, cars, gold bars, and jewelry. Digital assets. These were found across half a dozen luxury homes in Singapore in August this year. It belonged to a criminal syndicate from Fujian, China. Now, Singapore might be the last place on earth that you think criminal syndicates would gather and perform illegal activities. After all, the country would send you to jail for 2 years for chewing gum. The 10 people arrested, they all belonged to criminal activity and networks that spread across Asia, and these originated from China. They have foreign passports which they use to travel around the world. One person even has 5 different passports. This was a shocking event for Singapore, which has touted its judicial justice for a very long time, but has now been tainted by this particular event. What's the broader context here? Well, since 2019, it has replaced Hong Kong as the next destination in Asia. The financial hub of Singapore is where now many Chinese officials as well as rich people seek to place their money. And now, with a broader increased attention from China, comes the increased criminal activities and networks. With real money comes dark money, and that's where people found these criminal syndicates to thrive, which is money laundering and scamming people. And guess what? A hidden bonus of Singapore is that people, they don't have to speak other languages. Singaporeans speak Chinese. Our main guy today, the leader of the syndicate called the Fujian Gang, is 40 years old, and his name is Su Haijin. He's married, and he has lived a luxury life from the money that didn't belong to him. Now, Fujian province is the closest province to Taiwan, and it's where in recent years, many of these criminal activities stem from, with different sort of scam networks, as well as all sorts of other illegal dealings. Since China has cracked down on some of the activities, they've all moved their operation out of Fujian into surrounding countries like Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, and so on. In fact, many of the southeastern billionaires and politicians, including in Singapore, they can trace their ancestry all the way back to the Fujian province, which has a long history of traveling down to the southeast part of Asia. And since the 1970s, which coincided with the reform and opening up, the province of Fujian has become a hotbed for criminal activities. Today, you can find criminal networks and activities spamming across Myanmar, Thailand, the Philippines, down to Singapore. And behind it all, you can find the Chinese Fujian trace with responsibilities connecting or tying them together. Now, we recently did an episode on the situation in northern Myanmar where people were kidnapped there to perform these illegal activities, and that episode, I recommend you check it out. I'll link it right here. Where Su Haijin, our main character, comes in is the money laundering part. Once these criminal groups get money, they need to make sure that the money stays legal. And the truth is, there's so many more people like Su Haijin who launder money from China. Now, there's many different channels and ways in which money can be laundered. Some of them work more sophisticated and others work more bluntly. And this all depends on the situation, so we'll try to cover a few cases this time. The case with Su Haijin and his company, they've laundered a big amount of money, but some of it stays in cash, others go into investments, into contributions, into charities, and so it's hard to trace all of it, and that's why the amount of asset keeps growing. And it's not just assets in Singapore, but also overseas in many different countries. Now, it's a two-part operation. The first part is you have to get the money, and that's where the scam activities come in. Like I said, many of these criminal groups lured Chinese people and other workers from the local area, either paying them really low wage or simply using them as slave labor to try to make money in this process. As those scam tactics get more sophisticated, one of the ones I want to point out is something called a pig butchering scheme. This originated from China, and the idea is quite simple, but it's also very complex. They try to cultivate somebody who is considered the pig, really nice and fat and ready to be killed, and the butchering part comes once the big money is tied to them and they can no longer escape. So you've heard about the telefraud from India, the Nigerian prince, or the Saudi oil prince, but have you ever heard of the Fujian prince of pig butchering? In one form of the pig butchering, these profiles disguised as handsome men from China seeking a love online will lure women in their 40s and 50s with a decent amount of money. How do they find them? Well, they use their IP address, online activities, and footprints to locate them and hunt down their targets. To begin with these, they have to do cold messaging to different mediums, such as text message, iMessage, different sorts of chat group platforms, and apps such as WeChat, Instagram, Facebook Messenger, and such. So you get random messages that start with hi, or this is Haley from bowling last night, which clearly you know does not belong to a real person or somebody who really wants to approach you. But they also sometimes attach a beautiful selfie from a beautiful girl, and this in turn will get some people. Now, if the recipient says something along the lines of, sorry, you got the wrong number, or I don't know you, it actually becomes an opportunity for the scammer to continue the conversation to build rapport, which some people eventually fall for. Now, these scams are very complicated because they take months to even a year to cultivate. So the person that's being scammed may not not even realize that they are actually in the process of losing everything. Now, another form of this, which is reported by The Wired, is using cryptocurrency as the ultimate objective. Now, they get invited to this platform where they can see daily trades of cryptocurrency, and they're asked to invest a lot of money. Obviously, this whole thing is being set up. It's an internal platform which is being manipulated, and in turn, they get to make a little bit of money, few $1,000s, but they have to invest much more. In the end, the victim has lost everything. They've lost all their life savings, cars, houses, assets, cash, etc. There are some other ways as well, sort of like variations of butchering. For example, the person that's scamming you may ask you to download WhatsApp or Telegram or some other applications that fits your home country. And in turn, these apps are actually not secured, which means there's a higher opportunity or a higher chance for them to scam you, to hack, to take your personal information, and to essentially take what you exposed online as chances for them to take things from. And that's why apps like Telegram and WhatsApp, their security is very bad. And we often hear stories of their accounts getting hacked, or there's impersonators and so on. So it's not an app that's really good for talking with strangers. Now, in particular, the stories that I hear from China, they mostly targeted two groups. First, there were gay men online in China who were seeking to find a partner. And then now, the majority of the victims are middle-aged women who are falling for these handsome men online who turns out to just be scammers. And instead of cryptocurrency, what they do is using a gambling platform as the way for the victims to make a little bit of money. In the end, of course, they lose everything. Now, speaking of scammers and your online activity, let me introduce to you my sponsor today. You probably realized in this episode how scammers and hackers can easily get access to your information, like phone numbers and emails. That's why one of the best tools to defend yourself online is a trusted VPN. Our sponsor, Private Internet Access, is the world's most transparent VPN provider. Whenever you're browsing online on an unprotected device, such as your phone, computer, tablet, console, etc., your device is transmitting a great amount of information out into the open, which can be viewed by various different entities before it even reaches the intended website. Now, a virtual private network, or VPN for short, hides your IP address and safeguards your internet connection through secure access channels. Imagine a shield that protects you from those who are looking to harm your online presence. Now, they don't keep a record of your data, which has been proven multiple times in court and by a third-party audit from Deloitte. And the best part is that you can use your private internet access subscription to protect an unlimited number of devices at the same time. And my favorite feature is the built-in ad blocking. Private internet access also allows you to choose one of the 84 countries so that you can access Netflix and other streaming services content in those countries. With this powerful geolocation feature, I use it to browse Chinese websites that are crucial for my research as if I'm in China. By using my link, you can grab an 83% discount on private internet access. That's just $2.03 a month. And you can also get 4 extra months completely for free. So click the link in the description or comment and start your secured internet browsing today. Alright, let's continue our video. Once the money is being made, that's where Su Haijin and company comes in. They need to take the money from China and make it clean. There's 4 ways online which I've found that Su Haijin could have used to get money from China out here. The first way is actually using the situation with migrant workers who are in Singapore, but they need to make money and send some of it back to mainland China. Su Haijin will approach these people and tell them that instead of working with the banks to transfer money, Su Haijin can offer a higher exchange rate, which sometimes may be 500 yuan, higher than that of the market rate. Now, to most people, having an additional 500 of anything is pretty good. So for example, if a worker wants to send 1,000 Singapore dollars to China and make it become RMB, then maybe the exchange rate right now is 5.3, for example. Then that means for 1,000 Singapore dollars, they get 5,300 RMB. But Su Haijin will offer them an additional 500 RMB so that their rate is higher, which means that the worker will now be sending home for 1,000 Singapore dollars, 5,800 RMB. To most people, that sounds like a really good deal. And instead of going through the bank, Su Haijin will tell them that his company in China will directly send that fund to their family. What a convenience. In turn, what has happened is Su Haijin here in Singapore has obtained clean money which was made by the workers. And while back in China, his company there with the dark money will be able to send the money away to somebody else and successfully laundered it. Obviously, they lose a bit of money in the exchange rate, but that's not the purpose because they get to launder money that they never started out with, which they got from scams, into real money. So they're still winning. Now, the second way is often the most dangerous, but also very specific, which is using cryptocurrency. In this day and age, can be easily traced, so it's not often used by Su Haijin, but it can be done, which is again using dark money to purchase crypto or investing in it, and in turn selling and then getting the money back. Now, this can also apply with real estate, which I'll talk about a bit later. Now, the third way is that Su Haijin approaches merchants in Singapore who wants to import goods from China, and that's very often in Singapore. What Su Haijin tells them is that instead of importing directly from China, they can just pay Su Haijin's company here in Singapore, and his company company, Su Haijin's company back in China, will be able to buy those goods for them and then ship it to them. Again, basically they're saying that I've got a company back home which can do all the dirty work for you, and you just have to collect the goods in the end. Again, that launders the money back to Singapore. And the fourth way is really transferring money by going through circles around the world. Basically, the money that gets deposited into Singapore's banks have gone through dozens of different countries, different banks, and so while there is difference in exchange rates, basically helps it to increase the difficulty in tracing where the money comes from. And that's why when the Singapore authorities were alerted of these transactions, it took a long time for them to trace it. And Su Haijin and his co-conspirators have the entire process nailed down. Not only do they have access to Singapore, they have other passports like in Cyprus, in Turkey, in Cambodia, in St. Lucia. All of these places allowed them to disguise their identity and to perform operations outside of the jurisdictions of multiple different countries. And while he gets money in Singapore, he also managed to package himself as a philanthropist and as a self-made successful businessman. So he often donates to different charities. During COVID, he even donated large sums of money and supplies to China. And this is very similar to the Fujian Alliance associations of different countries. Like, for example, in the US, there were these two arrested for the CCP police station. They were also from Fujian. And according to charities that received donations with names similar to the 10 arrested, for example, the President's Challenge as well as the Community Chest, these two charities each got respectively 350,000 Singaporean dollars and 30,000 Singaporean dollars. By making charities, it helps to create an image that, or a persona, that Su Haijin is a lavish person, but he also is a kind and nice giving person. And then some of that cash is also used to buy properties in Singapore, which anyone presented with $20 million to buy a property is going to get some offers really quickly. And Su Haijin, he personally invested and bought about 20 plus different properties across Singapore. And one of them is worth 62 million US dollars. That's more than what Jeff Bezos owns in the heart of New York City. And all the rest of the cash and different sorts of assets are bought into cars, into watches, into luxury items, bags, etc., and gold. And so this allowed many part of his illegal money laundering activities to stay hidden from the eyesets. So in the end, the question is, how did they get caught? Well, cash is one thing it's hard to trace, but he still made other forms of digital purchases follow the money. So authorities were alerted in 2021 with potential fraud transactions, and many institutions reporting such fraudulent alerts, including forged documents, etc., to support their investments on the island. And while these suspicious financial reports were investigated by the police, they found the trace of the 10 criminal groups, members of the groups. And beyond that, we know that crypto is easy to trace. If you're buying real estate, there must be different sorts of hints that you're dropping for the police to check. And so in the end, they were caught. And that's the story right now. So ultimately, Singapore has been able to restore some of its reputation as a hard against crime country. But so in the end, you have to wonder, one group is caught, how many more are hidden and secretly operating, not in Singapore maybe, but multiple different countries across the world, and they haven't been caught yet. All right, that's it today for the episode on the Singapore billion-dollar money laundering and scam network. 10 have been caught, but so many more out there. Let me know your thoughts in the comment about this topic, and subscribe to our channel as well as like this video. I'm David Zhang, this is China Insider. We'll see you next time.